Coaches, are you ready to revolutionize your game preparation? For the past 5 seasons, coaches across the nation have been using the ultimate scout team game changer, the Coachpad. Imagine this: no more scrambling on weekends to prep scout cards, no more fumbling with paper and binders. Whether you're drawing your cards digitally with a computer program or sketching them by hand, the Coachpad is your all in one solution. Picture yourself on the practice field, effortlessly managing your scout team or standing on the sidelines during game day, syncing adjustments from the press box to your coaches on the sideline and back. With the coach pad, you can clearly see your scout cards even in the brightest sunlight. No more squinting or dealing with the wind blowing clear vinyl sleeves everywhere. This offseason, take your coaching to the next level. Get your coach pad today at thecoachpad.com and gear up for a winning season ahead.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast. We have a friend of our channel, Coach Ridgway, back. He is since last time. He's the head coach at Delhi Charter there in the great state of Louisiana. Coach, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Enjoying this cold weather we got in Louisiana.
Well, that's our normal weather. Welcome, Coach. Welcome. Um, I mean, obviously, after we filmed our long split pack video, which will be in the bio, you got the head coaching job there, had a decent first year. I think like 6 wins, if I remember correctly, skimming. Kind of explain how did your since we last talked, how everything's been?
It's just been good. Roles have changed. It wasn't long after we did that split back video that we had our head coach left, went for another opportunity, and anytime you're on staff at a place when the coaches leave, it kind of creates a lot of uncertainty. And so luckily, uh, went through the interview process. They brought us all in because the day after we got back from Christmas break is when the head coach officially left, and so the principal and AD brought us in as a staff, and because it kind of sent everybody for a surprise, like nobody thought he was leaving. As a matter of fact, that job that he left for, there was people thought that I was going to leave for it. But I guess jokes on them. So I uh he leaves and they bring us all in the office and they're just like, you know, we just kind of want to get y'all's feel and everything. And then of course we want to know, are any of you planning on leaving with him? And if is anyone interested in the head job? And of course, me and then we had another guy on staff. We both expressed our interest in it, and I think we ended up with like 20 something applicants uh, for it. Had some crazy names that came in for the job, and came through that, and got to as a finalist, and then kind of went through another round of interviews, and then they offered me the job. And so going from OC to head coach, that was in a situation I never thought I'd be the head coach here, because the guy that was the head coach, he's a graduate, he's alumni here, and I'm only the third head coach in this program's history, and the guy that started this program is our principal, and the guy that was head coach here before me, he was a player, and so it's kind of one of those deals where it was a selection, like this is my heir apparent, and he was here for 5 or 6 years, and then he left. So I never thought that I would be in this position here. Now I wanted to be. It was getting time for me wanting to become a head coach again, and when you talking about how life just works out for you, man. I didn't have to leave, and so it was a good first year, and but just coming through the changes of it and transitioning from a coordinator to the head coach, it just there was a lot of stuff, a lot of learning to go with it. But like I said, we had a good first year, uh, wins and losses wise. We had a heck of a first year when it comes to culture, and so, which is probably what I'm most proud of.
So kind of talk about that transition. Obviously, you guys weren't in a bad spot when he left either. Like, I
No.
mean, he left it in a pretty good spot. Offensively, you guys were doing your things. Defensively, you're fine. Like, you want to kind of talk about that transition of kind of what you kind of kept and what you kind of your focal points of. I want to put my own spin on this.
Well, the first thing I wanted to change was the weight room. Um, I don't I didn't feel like that we were getting the most out of our weight program, and so I promoted a guy on staff. I made him the strength coach. And because previously we didn't really have a strength coach. I know that's very strange to say, but we didn't really have one. The head coach kind of did it, and that wasn't his thing. And he'll tell you that. And so that was kind of one of the parts of it when they named me as head coach, is like I didn't want to be in that strength role. I wanted to hire somebody else to do that. And which kind of creates a little bit of some issues because this head coach's teaching role, that was the strength role as far as during the day, as far as the PE classes. And so that was one of the things that they did for me, is they allowed me to, and I promoted a guy on staff to do it. And he does a great job. And so I wanted to fix the weight room. Well, to me, when you fix the weight room, that's where everything kind of starts falling in place, and that's where your expectations are set. And so, our kids were never weight room guys. They didn't love it. We had a couple that they loved it. They eat iron for breakfast, but for the most part, it was always just something we did, and it wasn't something that we enjoyed doing. It wasn't something that we truly bought into. It was almost like we were kind of doing it because we were expected to do it, not that we wanted to do it. And so I sat down with the kids and introduced them to some science about some things, and they bought in, man. We had a really good summer attendance wise. Matter of fact, I increased our workouts. We went from a 3-day week to a 4-day week, and we had a very, very high attendance. And so the kids were all in, but it don't, unfortunately, growth in the weight room doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, a lot of time, and the numbers are increased a lot, and uh, the the technique has increased, the excitement has increased. But before, that was another thing. I guess I should probably add. Previously, we were a 1A, but then we got moved to 2A in the middle of that transition with the reclass. And our 1A, 2A is a big difference, a very, very big difference. And we're playing against 60, 70 man rosters. Uh, we got D linemen that are like trying to move trucks, and we were just outsized and all that stuff. And I knew that. And so we really had to get in the weight room. So that was the first thing I wanted to change, was the weight room and the culture of the weight room. Um, so then we got into the staff aspect of it. I think that is probably the most important thing, is that I was allowed to, I was given 2 hires, outside hires, and I brought in a receivers coach from a school that they had just won a state championship. Like, they were coming off a state title, and geographically it was tough for him, and because he was living like right here next to us, driving an hour every day to that school. And we met on the baseball field that spring, and I got him to come on board, and so that was big. I hired a new defensive coordinator. He was I actually played for him, and because what I wanted a DC that I didn't have to worry about, and so I trusted him. He knows his stuff. He's been a defense coordinator for a long, long time, and so I brought him in, and I let him do his thing. It's funny because I'm not a big 3-3 guy. Like, I'm not a big fan of the stack, and I mean, guess that's neither here nor there. But I wanted to be a 3-4 or a 4-3 team, and he comes in, and guess what he does? Guess what he knows? He's a 3-3 guy, and so that was one concession that I made. Is I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hire a DC, and I'm gonna let him run his defense, and he runs a 3-3, which is the defense I don't want to run, but I can't hire somebody and tell them I want you to do something different than what you already know. And he was my guy. He was my first hire, and so he's kind of been like a number two for me. And like Nick Saban said, and all the stuff, a lot of things he said, but you got to get the right people off the bus and get the right people on the bus too. And so I'm not gonna say I cleaned house because I didn't. I retained, high school football. You just can't come in and fire everybody.
Yep.
But there's a couple of guys that they knew that it was probably best they did leave, and for whatever reason, they're good people, but they just didn't fit what I wanted, and they knew that, and they got opportunities, and they left, and so I have a phenomenal staff. I really do. It's a great combination of alumni. I've got a couple of guys here. They'll be here for 30 years. They have no desire to leave this school. They want to stay here and better this school. I got a couple of guys that have head coaching aspirations, that want to be head coaches one day. And then I got a couple of guys that are veterans that have been head coaches before, and they're happy being an assistant. They've seen the other side of this thing. And so I think when you blend these guys together, you get a phenomenal staff. We have great chemistry. And I just let them coach. Like I don't get in their way. I believe that. I believe when you hire guys, you should let them do what they do. If you don't let them do what they do, you should have hired somebody else, or you should be doing it. One of the two. Let them do it. And so that's the big deal, is the weight room change, the transition of that, changing that aspect of it, and then bringing in some guys that can help you win ball games. And we accomplished that in year one. So that's very exciting.
Coach. Now with that, like how you've gone through the full season and now you're in the middle of the off season, how is because again, you got that, I think we talked roughly about this time last year. So you didn't get a full off season, but it wasn't like a bare off season either. Like it wasn't last minute. How have you approached after a full year this off season compared to last in general?
Well, still, we kind of wanted to reevaluate what we were doing in the weight room. Last spring, we kind of went with the high rep, lower weight method, trying to build up stamina and cardio. But this year, uh, we changed. We want to go this spring is dedicated to building just pure strength, and so we're lifting a lot heavier weight, lower reps, but a lot heavier weight, and we're hitting 95% every day, and so we kind of reevaluate that. This year also we had some strange injuries, man. We had three ACL injuries, and so we really wanted to reevaluate what are we doing wrong. I mean, that I know ACLs are freak injuries, and they happen, but three in one season. And so we kind of wanted to reevaluate that, really start focusing on isolation and trying to prevent those injuries. Um, X's and O's wise, that was one benefit of me being already on staff. There's going to be we're going to be much X's and O's changing. And so we retained this, we kept the same offense, made a few changes here and there, kind of put my spin on it. I know some people are like, well, you're the OC. Well, I was also the OC under someone else, and he wanted certain things. And when it come to play calling, sometimes I erred on the side of conservative because it wasn't my name attached to the result as far as that wins and loss goes. So kind of putting my spin on it, how we practiced and all that stuff. But I guess to answer the original question was the year one, I had a little bit different approach because I was already on staff with off season. I knew where the flaws were. I knew where I wanted to improve. I had a really good feel for the state of the program. And so it really wasn't trying to change. And I think that's where some people get in trouble, especially if they come from within. Now, granted, if you were coming, let's say we were 0-10 the year before, and you somehow another got the job, see, because that's the thing, like we talked about before, is that some situations they just want to change, and I don't care how good of a head coach you are or how good of an assistant coach you were. or how good your resume is. If a school wants change and you're on that staff, you're not going to be the guy. And so if you're on an 0-10 program, chances are they're not looking for the inside to promote. But let's just say that you are, then maybe that situation warrants a complete overhaul. But in my scenario, I didn't need a complete overhaul. I needed some tweak. I didn't want to come in and blow things up year one. I wanted to come in and improve some things, sit back for a year and let it kind of unfold. Uh, Basically taking the old way of doing things and slowly change it to how I wanted it done, because, the old saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, and I didn't want to wear myself out trying to blow something up the first year. And at the end of the day, it was a good thing. We were moving forward. So I didn't do a lot. I wanted to fix the weight room and hire some guys, and I didn't want to make X's and O's changes because I mean, unfortunately, I mean, like I knew who my DC was going to be in January, but I couldn't get him hired. He wasn't officially hired until June, so there's not a lot I can do. And then, um, like, and the receivers coach, he's in the National Guard, so he was in drill the first month, and so there wasn't a lot of X's and O's changing per se because I just didn't have time. This year we're doing spring ball. That's something we did not do last year. We're going to do spring ball this year. Um, and we're like I said, we're reevaluating the weight room. What can we do differently to prevent some things, and what can we do differently to increase some things? And so you do that. I think it's year two. Now, granted, I'm in year two or going into year two, but I think it's year two is whenever someone in my situation, I think it's when you really start making some changes. And we'll see. I'm excited about spring because we're breaking in. We got a new quarterback, tweaking the scheme a little bit, and we're very excited about our incoming freshman class, and so we need to get them out there and get them acclimated and kind of speed some things up, and mainly to create some momentum going into the summer. And so that's one of the big differences is doing spring ball.
What does spring ball in Louisiana look like? I honestly do not know. So like, what does that kind of entail for you guys?
It's you got 10 days. You got 10 days of practice, and then a game. And but I scheduled our well. Now this all ain't 100% official because I got to get with Purvis and all because we're going to be scrimmaging them, and so we got to report all that here pretty soon that we're declaring, because if you don't declare to play spring, I don't know how other states are, but if you don't declare to play spring, then you get an extra week in August, and so you have to declare all that, and so um 10 days you get a game. Now what we're going to do is we're probably going to practice about 8 days in a game. And because, man, like my running back, he's as a freshman, he won state in the triple jump, and so we're anticipating him to win state again. Him and my quarterback and a couple of my DB receivers are going to be on the relay team, and they're probably going to be in the state meet. So I have to navigate spring sports really, really tough here. I have to navigate it because it's tough to work around it. And so we don't have a lot of time. So you're looking at probably matter of fact, I was looking at the dates the other day. The spring game will be the last week of school. And that's how late it'll be. So, but like I said, we're going to get it in. And well, that's one thing I learned last year is that, man, that extra week in August, don't get me wrong, it's nice. But shoot, dude, because that puts you practicing 3.5, 4 weeks before you ever play somebody, hit somebody in other color jersey. And it's very frustrating. And we can't do inter squad scrimmages because we just don't have enough kids for that. And so the monotony of it, as a matter of fact, I wish the state of Louisiana would adopt either give us a second scrimmage or do some kind of allow us to have one joint practice or something so that we can stop hitting on each other. Like we're so beat up coming out of camp by week one, man, because we're having to hit each other, and you got to get your contact volume up. And when you're running around with 40-man roster and basically everybody's a two-way player, it wears you down. So I think spring is going to be a big deal. I'm trying to promote it as a big deal anyway. I'm trying to hype it up a little bit, and so we'll see.
No, I get it. Like I said, every state's a little different on what theirs. Like, I mean, we don't really get true spring ball here, and I know like each state down there is a little different on when, how, and how it affects the summer and all that lovely little jazz there. Kind of continuing, like again, you talked a little bit like this year. You made some modifications offensively, like what going into year one, because obviously you went from being OC to head coach, and you mentioned you got a little less conservative. I'll phrase it that way. Like kind of what tweaks, like again, split back team, but I know you do some other things as well. Kind of when you took the head coaching job, what kind of was your mindset in terms of offense and how you wanted to approach that um, going into that year?
Well, I knew going into our district, this new district, we were going to be a new classification. I knew that we were not going to be able to just line up and whip people up front. And so I felt like we had to throw the ball more. And so that's why I brought in my receivers guy. And he kind of, I guess you say passing game coordinator type role. And we kind of revamped our passing game. Um, then it's one thing to install all of it, but it's another thing to actually call it in the game. And so we were a little more ballsy this year, because I knew that we couldn't just line up and run dive and get 5 yards pop. I mean, we still could, but like we knew that we were going to be staring at more third and mediums rather than third and shorts, and so we implemented we threw a lot of screens this year, something we hadn't done. Threw a lot of screens, a little bunch of now routes, little bubbles, a couple tunnels, and then just improving our quick game. And then we ran some shotgun. As a matter of fact, our scrimmage, we didn't go under center not one play. Our scrimmage, we were gun split. And because I wanted because at that point we had always kind of dabbled in, and I talked about the video before, where you could do some stuff out of it. And I said, okay, I told all my guys, I said, we're gonna be 100% gun for the scrimmage. I want to see how it works. And it worked well. Option was way more explosive. You get the ball to perimeter so much faster. Our passing game was better. Dive really sucked because the defensive end had time to kind of make the tackle. But so I was willing to try some more things because again, like, I'm the head coach. My name's attached to it. If it blows up in my face, then it's my face. It's not somebody else's face. And so just a couple little tweaks, like opening the offense up more. Special teams was something I went into earlier. Special teams became very important. And I crap you not, we didn't kick an extra point. I was the OC here. I was an assistant for 4 years. Never kicked an extra point. And so I wanted to make that a point of emphasis this year. We found a kicker. Matter of fact, he got second team all district. And so we kicked extra points. We got creative on kickoff. Special teams was a point of emphasis because prior special teams had kind of been one of those deals where we just did it on Thursdays and that was it. And we scripted it into our practice. I had an actual special teams coordinator, and he did an excellent job. And I mean, we got creative on kickoff. We onside kick. We sky kick. Sometimes we kicked it and just hoped that we could get downfield and cover it. And we did swing and gauge stuff on extra point. Really emphasized, the kickoff return game. That was a weapon for us. We had a couple kickoff returns for a touchdown, and we had a great year special teams wise because I knew going into the district, previously in 1A we could hold our own. Like we were one of the better ones, I guess you could say, talent wise. Uh, but going in 2A, we were now the low man on the totem pole, and so I felt like we had to find little nuances here, things here and there to steal us a possession here and there. And it seemed like every game, we had a big special teams play. I think I was so frustrated. We started out 3-0, and in our non-district, we go into Faraday. which is it's a very interesting environment to go in. They're super, super talented, and they were having one of their better teams this year. And we go down to their place, man, and I'm telling you, if you had told me before the season started, we had a special teams touchdown and a defensive touchdown. You tell me that before the season, I'm saying stamp it. We're gonna win that ball game. And dude, we play like crap on offense. Like we had like 23 penalties that night. Now, there, granted, there was 36 penalties called the entire game, so it kind of show you, flags flying everywhere. But we had 23 penalties and lost. I think in the being 50s and the 30s, something like that. So we scored points. We just didn't score enough. But like I said, man, you told me before the season, hey man, against Faraday, you're going to have a special teams touchdown and a defensive touchdown. I'm like, oh, it's a W. Because I mean, that was the two phases previously. Defense and offense, defense and special teams had kind of been our problem. Moving the ball was not. And that particular night, man, we'd get something and then we'd have a false start, or we would. And I kind of outcoached myself that week. I was chasing ghosts, and if I'd have just lined up and done what we did, I think we'd have more success. So being a play caller still, but with the head coach aspect of it, I learned a lot that night, and I said, we'll never do that again. We're gonna do what we do. We're not gonna give the opponent too much credit. Let's put it that way. And that's what we did, game plan wise. And so, just little things, because previously I've called the offense, it wasn't that big of a deal, but whenever get the head coach aspect of it too, because you you know because that's not that I didn't care, but like my job was to get on there and score every freaking play. And when I was just the OC, I didn't worry about offense. I didn't worry about defense. I didn't worry about special teams. I didn't worry about all that. And but being the head coach and the play caller, you kind of got to me anyway. You need to balance some things and not just try to score 100 points a game. And so like I said, that was interesting. Uh, just moving forward, but yeah, improve special teams, improve the weight room. Tackling, man, we tackled. We bought some tackling dummies and the little pop up dummies, and not the pop up dummies, but the tackling sleds. Got a couple of those, and we did a tackling circuit before every practice. And I wanted to improve our tackling because it was god awful, and that improved. So just little things. That's the benefit of me being here previously, as opposed to someone that hadn't been here. They don't really know what they're walking into. They don't know the kids. They don't know the staff. They don't know when the game's on the line, what kids are going to step up, which ones ain't. So that was very, very beneficial.
Now, that last question for you, like any major or pieces of advice for people taking over a program year one do you have?
First thing, don't accept a job unless you already have your guy in place. That's going to be your complement. So like in my case, I had my DC already ready. I'd already talked to him. It was one of those deals where if I got the job, he was coming. And so have your complimentary assistant, your number two per se, have that already in your pocket. All right. If you're walking into a situation blind, you don't know, you weren't already there. I would advise to get on campus as fast as possible. And I know that's difficult because, like I said, it's not like college where you're day one, where the day you get the job is your first day working at school. It's usually not the case. I would advise doing spring year one if you're not already there, just to have some familiarity there. You need to. I would take as many sick days from your previous employer as you can to get on campus and be there. Um, you need to evaluate your staff. That's a big deal. Already kind of have your guys in place. Now, if you're in my situation where you're being promoted within, you need to be willing to I'm not gonna say burn some bridges, hurt some relationships, but there's a chance that when you take over, A, there might be somebody on your staff. Like I was lucky. The other guy that was on my staff, he and I had a great working relationship. And we decided that if neither one of us, whomever got it, the other one was going to stay and work for him. And because we had a great relationship, but you need to be wary that if you apply, somebody's already on staff applies, how's your relationship going to be? So if there's two dudes on two dudes from your current situation applying for a job, I feel like you and that person need to have a sit down conversation and say, what if? All right, because you don't want to hurt that, especially if they're friends. And I consider this guy he's a good friend of mine and a great dude. And check that off your box. You need to kind of again go back to what I said a second ago. Like I had some guys that they knew that if I took over, the changes that I was going to make, far as staff goes, how I was going to run things, they didn't fit it. You know, my thing is we're going to grind, and that was one of the things that my big thing is it takes what it takes. And we're not going to if we have to practice 2.5, 3 hours, we're going to practice 2.5, 3 hours. We're going to get it in. Uh, we're going to meet on Sundays, and I can't tell you what time we're leaving. I can only tell you what time to be there. And so I had some guys they knew that because they had worked with me in baseball or whatever, and they knew it was like, well, shoot, man, Ridgway's going we're going to put in some serious hours. And I had a couple of guys that just for whatever reason that's not what they wanted to do, and so um, you had to be careful about that stuff. Another thing that I had to kind of get used to was leading a staff, leading men that I was peers with. We were equals. And so, because my line coach, he was a young guy when we first got here, and I kind of, I guess you say, took him under my wing, and he was like my little brother, and and he still is. But now that I'm the head coach, I can't. He's got to. If he needed to improve, it wasn't more like a, hey man, I think you should do this. It was like, I need you to do this. Like I need you to get better at this or whatever. So there's little things when you take over guys that you've been equals with, it's different. But you need to make sure that your administration is behind you because if they're not, and I know everybody in administrator say I got your back, you need to know without a doubt that they are behind you because when you come in, you're going to make changes, and that's going to make some people mad. It's going to make people uncomfortable, and they need to have your back. And my principal and my athletic director are phenomenal, and they've got my back no matter what. And so I'm allowed to do things. I'm allowed to do things that might be a little uncomfortable. Like I feel like I had to clean the roster up. We had some knuckleheads on our team that while they were good talented players, they eventually they weren't part of what we were trying to do. So I had to separate from them. And when you start separating from kids in today's world, there's gonna be some upset people. And so make sure the administration is behind you and make sure they support your vision. And and even in the interview process, don't lie in your interview. Don't don't say you're going to do this just to make it sound good. You better make sure that you're willing to do it. Uh, because if you get the job and then you kind of crawfish on some of the stuff you sold, then you're going to be in a bind. You don't have to be the head coach on every job you apply for. And that was something I had to learn earliest. And I was earlier in my career, I might have been saying the right thing to try to get the job. And in hindsight, had I got that job and I wouldn't have done some stuff that I said I was going to do, well, that's a deal breaker, So be willing to do what you believe in, and don't worry about wins and losses. That was something else that I didn't care about coming in this year. I don't, and I still don't. I want to win, um, but I'm not going to sell my soul to the devil to win a game. Like winning is not the number one priority for me. And my number one priority is investing in these kids and developing young men and all that stuff. And sometimes you got to sacrifice wins and losses to improve that situation. So you need to figure out what's important to you. If wins and losses are important, or is your number one, you might want to just stay as an assistant at a big school that's going to win. Because you get in these small school situations, you might have to sacrifice some stuff, and you just got to decide what you're willing to sacrifice versus what you're not willing to sacrifice. And I'm not going to sacrifice character of this program and all that stuff to go win a game. That's not what's going to define us. And so have a plan, have what's important to you, and make sure that your plan and what's important to you, make sure those two things play hand in hand. And at the end of the day, coaches get fired. So I don't come to work every day, making my decision based off getting fired or not. Like, I'm gonna do what I feel is right, and if the administration doesn't agree with what I'm doing, then they can find somebody else. So whenever you're willing to let all that go, it's very liberating. It allows you to coach how you want to coach, and like I said, man, we've had some success, and I'm excited about going into year 2. I really am.
Good. Coaches, give Coach a follow. His Twitter will be in the bio. Um, like, share, subscribe, all that lovely jazz. Check out our sponsor, Coachpad. Again, help like, share, subscribe, help coaches find the weird YouTube algorithm crap. If you see it on Spotify or one of the other ones, share that as well. Otherwise, that's another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast.